people yelling, fuck the system. Well, I already did that like an old flame. I was sent to Earth with a mission. But first I gotta work through all the old pain, work through all the traumas that affected. My mind, body, spirit is connected. I'm tryna feel good, it's time to heal good. I'm tryna feel good, it's time to heal good. I'm tryna heal.
What's up? It's Mackenta.
And I'm Tabisha.
And this is Heal Good.
A space where we discuss how to take healing into your own hands.
Because we know
if you want to feel good,
you gotta heal good.
Today, we're going to be talking about the ego and how you can use your ego to work with you and not against you.
And how to keep it in check. But there's a certain awareness that you have to understand, is this my ego? And am I operating from my soul? From my heart? Or am I operating from my ego? Well, what does it look like when you're operating from your ego? So, judgment, reactive, getting defensive. Our egos are really the part of us that are how we see ourselves. And so they're really just there to protect us the best way that they know how to protect us. But the more you get closer with just your spiritual side, you start realizing that sometimes your ego can be the thing that gets you in trouble and stops you from really having deeper connections with people and with yourself too, and it just keeps you seeing yourself in a certain way.
Just establishing a more healthy relationship with it, I feel like, is super important for the spiritual journey, because there is such thing as having way too much ego, but also it's important to know that it's not a bad thing. It's just about how you understand it, how you work with it, and everyone's ego is different, and just keeping it healthy.
Like when I feel my ego acting up, I try to be like, thank you. If I realize it, because a lot of times when I'm in my ego, I don't realize it because I'm just too busy. But I just try to be like, thank you for trying to protect me. But now I'm gonna release you because that's my heart's job. So like judgment is a huge form of ego, and one of the things that you taught me is when you feel yourself being judgmental, stop and try to get curious.
Being curious, or like asking questions when I was feeling my ego flare up, helped me kind of pick it apart and understand, okay, why is this triggering me? What is it? And it kind of delayed my reaction to things, asking questions. So instead of reacting, I'm just like, why do I feel like this? Why did that bother me? Why is this a trigger? Why do I care? Just getting curious has definitely been helpful for me in terms of like how I react to things, because your girl can react. And I feel like that's something that I wanted to work on. So realizing just asking questions, it would give me time to kind of think about and pick apart why I was feeling whatever I was feeling.
If you find yourself judging someone, usually judgment is like based in assumption, like, oh, they're doing this because this. But then when you stop and get curious, you're like, well, why are they? Well, how are they feeling? What made them do that? Because judgment, the one thing that I've learned about judgment, actually a book is called The Judgment Detox by Gabby Bernstein. One thing that she talks about in that book when it comes to judgment is always a projection. So it's always, when you're judging someone else, there's something in you that you need to look at. Or if you're feeling judged, there's still something in you that you need to look at. And so our ego will make us feel like we have valid reasons to judge people. But really, it's like we're triggered by something that is making us feel like we need to defend ourselves. We need to defend ourselves. When really, when you get curious, you can actually understand before judging. Like, that's why we have such crazy racism and just discrimination that leads to violence. It's like, how far has that ego gone unchecked? Centuries of ego gone unchecked, when really, instead of saying, oh, this person's different from me, you judge it as bad. We could get curious of like, oh, what makes you different than me? Because we're really not as different from each other as we're made out to think. We're really not. Every single human has an ego, and it's just, that's what makes us human.
I know it could be really hard just trying to ask those questions when you're in that state, but I just feel like it saved me like so much time from being reactive and realizing, oh, that's nothing for me to take personal, because it's not like I was intentionally trying to make this person feel a way about XYZ. So how can I kind of move my attention away from that and not make it about them? Or not make it about me, I should say. How can I not make it about me? Yeah, taking it personally.
That's the hardest thing to know, because we feel like everything's personal, because we see things from our personal viewpoint. But then that's another thing. Usually when we're in communication with someone, our reactivity causes us to want to like respond. And especially when you get into a disagreement with someone, you're thinking, well, what am I going to say? How am I going to respond?
That's listening to like respond, not really listening to understand. And I feel like there's definitely, that could like, again, save so much time. But it's hard, especially when things come up where you are triggered, or, you know, you're feeling judged, or any kind of emotion. It's hard to do that, but it's doable, you know. It just takes like practice.
I feel like a lot of times you got to learn it in like relationships that matter to you, because when it's just with random people, you're so caught up on, well, I'm right, and well, this is how I felt. Yeah, they don't know me. But when it is with people that you love, it's like, do you want this relationship to deteriorate because of a lack of communication, because ego was involved? And one thing is like, that's the thing that helps me with people I don't know as well, is thinking of times when there's people I love and we're just not seeing eye to eye. That's where you get petty. And when you truly want to work something out with someone, you have to be willing to understand their side of you. And one of the thing is like, it takes presence. You have to be really present to do it, but to even repeating, okay, this is what I think you said. Is this correct? So that everyone's on the same page, and then responding and taking turns, and both people have to be willing to do that. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Disagreements are usually rooted in a feeling and not the actual issue. Like, for example, we could be arguing about this plant. Oh, I want the plant to be placed here. Well, I want the plant to be placed here. Really, we're not arguing about the plant. We're arguing about control. And then it goes even deeper. Okay, so why do I have an issue with control? Oh, because when I was a child, I felt like I didn't have control. Like, it could just go so far back.
It spirals, yeah.
And usually it is stuff from our childhood that really controls a lot of our views, that are like making us so tightly woven to
and fixated on our feelings and how we deal with situations when they come up.
You got the curiosity, seeking to understand, and also another way to check your ego too is, because it can show up in different ways. It's not always communication. Like, sometimes we feel like we're entitled to something from someone else, or we feel like we're not getting something, or we want more. And another way to really check your ego is like, give the thing that you want to receive first. So say I feel like I'm not getting enough attention from my significant other, and I really want attention. Instead of seeking attention, one quick fix is to give attention and pay attention. And then you'll find most of the time, like, ego is creating a wall between both people. Really feel the same way. Like, in a lot of arguments, it's like, you're making me feel like this. Well, you're making me feel like this. And you're both making each other feel the same way because it's coming from ego, where when you're really acting from your soul and from your heart, there's a part of you that's like, that sees the innocence in the other person, that wants to understand. It's really easy to like get so far away from that. I've been in arguments with people where the whole time I'm defending myself, and I'm like, just, you're so wrong, you're so wrong. And then I step away and I'm like, I see what they were saying. I was trying so hard to not see it in the moment, because that would have made me vulnerable to being wrong. And then if I'm wrong, then it's like, it's my fault. And it's like, do you want to be wrong? Do you want to be right? Or do you want a relationship with someone? Or even with yourself sometimes, like, you can judge yourself harshly. And then you have to look at that, like, why, like, curiosity, why am I judging myself so harshly? Who judged me? Who made me feel like there's this high standard for myself?
When you're in that self-reflection mode, it's so important to just like don't dwell too much on what has already happened when you have like an ego flare, because I know I've also definitely been in moments where like I have that ego flare up and then I'm like, oh well, I shouldn't have done that, and then it's just like me and this whole judgment thing now again because I had a flare up and I'm like ashamed about it or whatever. But it's just like, no, just accept. Now you have something else to look at, you have something else to pay more attention to, so when it does happen, if it happens again, because we're not perfect, we're working on it, just, you know, accept it for what it is and just be more aware of it, accepting it for what it is and moving on, and not being too hard on yourself or like the situation, or giving the situation any more energy that it needs to have.
Because the goal isn't to remove your ego, it's just to be aware of it.
And work with it better.
Because that's what keeps you safe, like in times of like survival or in danger. Like your ego will be the first thing to be like, I need to get out of here, I need to defend myself. But that fight or flight response, we carry that into our daily actions when we don't, it doesn't need to be there. We're safe, but we don't always feel safe. A lot of people carry a feeling of not being safe when there's no immediate danger, but it's just an emotional safety that ego protects you from like really feeling that. It's really easy to not feel safe in the world that we live in. Just, you know, we talk about healing all the time. I still have huge ego issues. Huge ego issues.
Same.
Like
when my ego flares, and that's why, like I already said this, but having to ask questions, because I'm so reactive. I could just be like, who said what? What now? Like automatically wanting to check somebody, automatically wanting to protect myself from whatever that person is projecting onto me. But you don't have to automatically be ready for war when someone says something or acts in a way that, you know, you don't really understand. Just like ask a question, see if that has anything to do with you before you're like getting geared up and ready to go in like a SWAT team. Like you don't have to do all that. Like, you know, just ask a question. Like, is this about me? What is this about? And I feel like even just working in customer service, when I was working in customer service, it taught me so much of that. Sometimes, you know, you have those interactions with certain people that I was just like, I'm not having this. Like automatically it's just like, there's just a flare up, and you realize sometimes people come in on having their shit day, whatever kind of day they're having, and they're just looking to just, you know, throw up all of that stuff onto people who are just there doing their jobs. Like, and it took me so long not to take stuff like that so personally. Took me so long not to take those kinds of things personally. But I was just very like helpful and always wanted to like make sure people left with what they needed, making sure they left with whatever they came in for, making sure that they were happy. So when someone would come in a bad mood, I was automatically like, what did I do? And it's just like, girl, that had nothing to do with you. That person is clearly just having a day. But I really feel like customer service definitely taught me to just not take things so personally. And still that's still something that I'm working on, you know, I guess in the field that I'm working in too, like being a creative, like people not really understanding your path and whatnot and judging you for it and all that stuff. But it's just like, it has nothing to do with you. You know, that's their own projections, that's their own reality that they've created for themselves. You don't have to get so wound up into that. And I feel like it saved me a lot of time and energy to just like focus on what I need to focus on, which is like checking that ego when it comes up instead of being so reactive.
Because that's really what it is. Especially when you find yourself judging someone you don't even know. It's like something's bringing up something in you that you're scared of, or that you don't like, or you're scared of becoming that, or in the past some part of that has hurt you. So I have to do it with myself too. Like why am I, as soon as I feel the need to defend myself, it's like, all right, what insecurity is that masking? We all have insecurities. I don't care who you are. And the more you kind of just flex your ego, people can sense that. People sense that that's covering for something. You know, you still, there's a confidence you can have, but humility is still very important, because, you know, some of the most powerful rich people in the world, they still have humility because they've learn to master the art of connecting with people. And you don't connect by having walls up. Should we pull a card?
Let's pull a card. Put a click. Sorry.
What deck? Show them the deck.
The Soul Journey deck. I love this deck because it's like basically all affirmations and just affirmations for your soul and the journey. So I love it.
And so if you're watching this right now, we're gonna pull a card for how you can help check your ego and replace it with heart and soul in your life, and for us too.
This is for us too, y'all. Okay. This is for us too. All right. Okay. That's the one. That's the one. What do we have? Look at that.
Success. Love that for us. Okay.
Love it for us. Can you see it? Look
I
at
know that there is no greater goal than to love.
Say that again.
I know that there is no greater goal than to love. When I saw success, I'm like, what does success have to do with this? But that is how to be successful with your ego, is to focus on bringing love into every situation. Another thing from Gabby Bernstein, she's just timely right now because she was one of the first like spiritual teachers that really impacted me with her viewpoint. But one thing that she posted is just talking about if you can hate someone for no reason, you can love someone for no reason. And so she's like, I love you. You might be thinking, I don't know you, but it's true. You can love people you don't know. That's what really all of us deep down want. We search for different ways to be loved.
And to love ourselves, and sometimes we can do that to extreme points where we're protecting ourselves, but we don't want to be blocking ourselves from any kind of success now. So it's just important to be aware of the ego and just learn how to work with it. It's not a bad thing. You just gotta learn how to work with it.
Well, kids, let us know where your ego pops up, and we're sending you so much love from our heart and not our ego. And
Always from the heart.
And if you like this episode, leave us a comment. Tell us where you're at with your ego battles.
Because we want to hear them. Because we got our own, and we'll share some more if you'd like.
Yeah, we can share. Listen, I'm not fighting my ego. I'm learning to be aware of it daily. And yeah, we will be back next week with a new episode. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.
And we will see you next Wednesday, helping you and ourselves heal good.
Are we doing this again?
I don't know. It just happened.